This is the weekend edition of Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Sean Aylmer.
Good morning, Michael.
Sean, as always, our weekend show is all about the two of us each nominating what we think was the biggest story of the week, the most remarkable story, the sleeper story, and then our favourite story. It is obviously very, very subjective, particularly the favourite story, but even on the other categories, we rarely agree. So we need to bring in an adjudicator to help decide a winner for each category. Adam Lang, good morning.
Good morning, Michael. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Adam. What I appreciate there, Michael, is the last 2 weeks you have lavishly sucked up to Adam the moment he's come on. And I don't think it's done you any favours just quietly. So you've changed tack today. You've gone formal. I like it.
I'm trying a different approach. I'm trying to be professional. How does that sound? Not something I'm particularly used to. But do you want to kick us off today, Sean, with the biggest story of the week?
Oh, big deals are back. Ramsay Health Care received a bid from a consortium for $20 billion. That's a bid. The consortium included KKR, the big US private equity group, Hester, the super fund, and others. It's certainly, last year we had a few really, really big deals, Afterpay and Sydney Airport being the main two. We haven't actually had one this year that looks like it may get past the line. This one looks like it might get past the line. The bid at $88 a share price was well above the $64 that Ramsay Healthcare had been trading at. Now, Ramsay has been hurt throughout COVID because people haven't been using the private hospitals that they run. Paul Ramsay Foundation, the biggest philanthropic organisation in the country, owns 19% of Ramsay Healthcare. It wants this to go to a vote. So when you've got a 19% shareholder saying, let's take this to a vote, it suggests that they're very interested in it. I reckon this deal will get done, if not from the consortium of KKR and Hester, certainly from another bidder. There could be another one in the wings. So we'll have our first major deal of the year. Ramsay Healthcare, which of course operates hundreds of private hospitals across the country. It has operations in France and Malaysia as well. It will go into the hands of super funds and private equity. Biggest story of the week easily.
Oh, so it certainly is a big story, not the biggest story, because that's a big figure. A $20 billion bid is certainly very big, but mine affects so many people. The biggest story for me this week was two things happening in the property market, and maybe on their own they wouldn't be the biggest story, but put them together and it is certainly big. First up was the release of the minutes of the Reserve Bank board meeting from 2 weeks ago. The minutes show that with inflation picking up, the RBA is considering bringing forward interest rate hikes. I know interest rates have a much broader impact right across the economy, but for the sake of my argument here today, I'm just focusing on what it means for homeowners servicing a mortgage, and also for the would-be homeowners looking at what they can afford to borrow. Then you've got the federal government lifting price caps for its housing guarantee scheme. The increase means that more properties will now be eligible for first home buyers to access with a 5% deposit and no lender's mortgage insurance. I think something like 40% of suburbs across the nation will now qualify. That's going to boost demand, particularly in the lower end, and it's going to flow through from there. So on the one hand, you've got rising interest rates slowing the market. And on the other hand, you've got a housing guarantee scheme putting a floor under any potential price decreases. You put those two elements together and you easily have the week's biggest story. Don't you think, Adam?
Michael, look, I'm tempted to take points off for overselling it, but I have to say you do win this one. Now, the reason is, and it's just by a nose because it affects so many people in the property industry, is in the trillions rather than the billions. I also love the Ramsay Healthcare story, and it is massive. It is big in the sense that this is a disruptive period, and I love the fact that there's some aggression in the market, people looking to do some daring deals. And as Sean said, this is the first big one. So I think it's a terrific story. So, Michael, just by a nose on this one.
Righto, 1-0 to you, Michael. What's your most remarkable story?
I think it's pretty hard to go past the big drop in Netflix subscribers in the March quarter. The streaming platform lost 200,000 subscribers. Now, that's obviously a lot of people, but it's more significant than just the 200,000 people, because it's the first time in more than a decade that Netflix has actually lost subscribers in a quarter, and it's not going to stop there. In fact, that loss could actually be amplified significantly, because another 2 million customers are expected to go this quarter. These are huge numbers. And look, there's just so much competition now in the streaming space, particularly in the US, where you've got kind of Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, Hulu, HBO Max, Apple TV Plus. You look locally and there's a whole stack of other ones as well. The market's getting a little bit crowded. It's getting very crowded, really. And the Netflix share price has been absolutely hammered in recent days. Massive drops. I just think the scale of all of that is just pretty remarkable.
I agree it's the most remarkable story, but you've only given half the story, Michael. I was expecting you to go further. I mean, you're right. Netflix lost $50 billion worth of value in one trading day. Phenomenal, but it's only half the story.
Go on.
The most remarkable story of the week is old tech versus new tech. Netflix is old tech. Disney Plus, Amazon, Hulu, HBO, all those new competitors, they're in the market, much, much tougher to make money out of streaming than it used to be. New tech is Tesla. It is so far in front of every other car manufacturer because it was first to market with electric vehicles. This week, it came out and reported its quarterly earnings. Another record quarter for revenue, another record quarter for profit. Tesla's share price is up 40% this year. The S&P 500 is actually down about 6%. Tesla's share price is up 1,200% since the end of 2019. This week, we saw demonstrated old tech versus new tech. Netflix is old tech, Tesla's new tech, and I tell you what a difference that makes. Tesla is booming, Netflix is going to struggle. Remarkable.
Adam, I think we've just seen the master at work, the way he took my story, complimented it, and then used it to prove why his story was more remarkable. I'm in awe.
It was skillful, and Sean does win on this one, I'm afraid, Michael.
I completely agree. Goodness me.
Just from a tech perspective, because both your stories involve tech, isn't it interesting? You've seen sort of the subscriber numbers go up and Netflix lead the charge and probably the first one heading down. Buy now, pay later sector goes up and showing some signs of disruption. And all through this, Tesla has it probably started about the same time as Netflix did, right? In terms of where it started, but it's powering through and just the growth has been spectacular. So I think it is remarkable.
All right. So 1-1 heading into halftime. We'll be back in a moment with the sleeper story of the week. All right, Sean, we're looking now for the sleeper story of the week. So this is the story that might not be getting the attention that it deserves, or it's going to become a bigger story later on. I'm going to go first with this one because I think mine wouldn't really be a sleeper story for anybody who's working as a financial planner or anyone who's actually heard us talk about it on multiple occasions in the past. But the true state of that sector was really laid bare this week. More than 100,000 people stopped using financial advisors in the last year, and only around 10% of Australians are getting professional advice. And the advice is getting more expensive too, and just extraordinarily, more people are instead relying on unqualified influencers on social media, which I find just remarkable. It's a sleeper story, I think, because good financial advice is so important. And clearly, only 10% of people are now seeing a professional. I know that a lot of people feel confident making their own decisions, but clearly the industry is in desperate need of reform to bring people back to professionals, away from finfluers on Instagram, because that's just dangerous. And it's a story that really should be getting a whole lot more attention than it currently is, because if only 10% of people are seeing a professional, then clearly something is desperately wrong.
Good. I like it as a sleeper story. I like it. But I tell you what, the Dylan Alcott tweet this week is the sleeper story, not because no one knows about it, obviously it was big news, because of the ramifications. I reckon we will look back at Dylan Alcott's tweet and think, that's the moment the momentum in the election campaign changed. So let's take a step back. On the Sky debate on Wednesday night, the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, said he was blessed to have children without a disability. That insulted many people, including Dylan Alcott, the Australian of the Year, also a wheelchair athlete, who tweeted that he thought his parents thought that they were blessed to have him. I don't think Scott Morrison tried to be insulting to anyone, so I'm not suggesting that, but it just showed how tone deaf he is on some of these issues. And given he's the Prime Minister, he shouldn't be tone deaf around disability, and there's a huge proportion of the electorate who are disabled. What it does, it allows people who don't like Scott Morrison or wavering voters to confirm their bias against Scott Morrison and his attitudes in 2022. That Dylan Alcott tweet, I reckon, has shifted momentum in the election. It is not the sleeper because no one heard about it. It's the sleeper because of the ramifications of it over the next few weeks. And of course, Adam, if we have a new government because of a Dylan Alcott tweet, that is influential.
These are both great stories. I'm going to give this one to Sean again by a nose. I think the financial planning industry, I mean, those statistics, Michael, you quoted them. We've reported them during the week. 100,000 down in the last year and only 10% of people seeking financial advice. Internationally, when we've got such a large amount in superannuation funds being invested, that people sort of subjugate their investment or that part of their life investment off to someone else, a superannuation fund, to invest on their behalf, but don't do anything really with the rest of their equity, the rest of their money. That is a huge story, and one I think of great long-term concerns, great sleeper. But I guess, Sean, your point to Dylan Alcott here, I think actually the power in it was that it reflected Scott Morrison's remarks probably reflected the way a lot of people feel, and that they recognised through the discussion, the debate that followed, including Dylan Alcott's tweet, that actually it's not being looked at in the right way. And so I think the fact that it not only Dylan Alcott tweeted about it, someone who's Australian of the Year and an aspirational person, but that it impacted so many going, oh, God, he's right. So I think that was the power in it. I think it was an incredible moment. And so that's why I think it's the sleeper for this week.
Okay. Favourite. Want me to go first on this one?
Oh, yes, please. I'm going to finish strong.
Righto.
You'll need to, Michael.
Thanks, Adam.
2-1. You're right. I tell you, my favourite story of the week is all the corporate good news. Now, we're a business podcast, and we should actually celebrate when shareholders win. And this week, there are a bunch of companies who haven't really done a lot over the past couple of years who have really come to the fore. Let's start with Challenger. It provides annuities and funds management. Selling an annuity, which is based on interest rates. Annuity is great, right? You've got income for life, but it's based on what the interest rate is. Very tough sell the last few years. Rates going up, sure, lots of people don't like that, but it's really good for Challenger and its shareholders. Also, its funds management business is doing really well. It had upgraded its guidance as a result. Its share price went up 10%. Whitehaven Coal, everyone hated fossil fuel companies a couple of years ago. Now we need them desperately. Its share price is up 5 times what it was 20 months ago. It came out this week and upgraded its profit. Brambles, another one. It has 345 million pallets out there. It upgraded because it can pass through prices, higher prices. So timber prices are higher. Brambles can pass those higher prices through to customers. I know there's lots of negatives in all that, but if I'm a shareholder, that's wonderful. Its share price jumped 8%. Santos Woodside, the oil and gas guys, have done really well this year. The shareholders must be delighted. Let's just park for a moment the ESG issues there. So Challenger, Santos Woodside, Whitehaven Coal, Brambles, all of them came out this week with information that the market really liked, pushed up the share prices, which is great for shareholders. Another one is Endeavour Group. That's the pubs and liquor store group. It said that people were spending more in its pubs. Liquor business was going backwards a bit. That's great news for its shareholders, and its share price rose. My favourite story this week is a bunch of stories because it just shows that shareholders are winning.
All right, well, I'll leave it to Adam to decide whether you should be disqualified for working 5 separate stories into one. But
not that you have any view on that, clearly.
I'm going to use just one of those stories, in fact. So I already feel like I'm at a disadvantage. I'm just using 20% of your story as my own favourite story, but it's a different angle. My favourite this morning isn't so much a good news story, but it's just my favorite story because I like talking about food and I like talking about drink. Endeavour Group, which you mentioned, owns nearly 350 hotels, Dan Murphy's and BWS and all of that. Anyway, they're putting up the cost of a pub meal. So a steak at the pub is going to cost more. The price of red meat is rising. So this story really isn't just about pubs. It's about the pressure on everyday households and the family budget as well. But the real reason it's my favourite story, Adam, is because when Sean and I were discussing this story during the week, Sean revealed that he would order at the pub a steak and salad because he doesn't eat chips. Who doesn't eat chips?
Well,
It's like not eating dessert. It makes you untrustworthy. And Adam, you cannot, in good conscience, award the point for the favourite story of the week to somebody who doesn't eat chips.
so before you answer, Adam, this is a high-risk strategy, Michael, because Adam is a fitness health nut. So have you thought about that before you actually said that to him?
I have nothing left to lose. I'm just going all in on this one.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
I'm going grubby.
Good call. I'm with you. Do you eat chips, Adam?
I do.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Good. Welcome.
Ooh, occasionally.
Special treat. So, this kills me because this has actually been the closest contest I've actually had to judge, but I'm giving this one to Sean and it feels like I'm robbing Michael at 3-1. But the reason, the Endeavour Group story in pub food as a reflection of the broader cost of living pressure around I think is a terrific story, an excellent favourite. But I have to say, it's not just the catch-all, Sean, that approach you took to this one, many stories into one favourite, but it's just how lucky we are as a country. I mean, if you look around the world, very, very few countries have it this good. The things that we dig up, the things that we grow, the things more and more the tech sector that's thriving here, the things that we're doing well, we're getting a lot of luck. And we're doing well, and it's reflected in unemployment, it's reflected in interest rates, it's reflecting in, I hope, GDP when we start to see more and more of it. And I think that's why this corporate good news and good news for shareholders is a fantastic and broad story, both across superannuation and investments in general. So, Sean, yes, you win. 3-1 to you today. Well done.
Thank you very much.
Well done, Sean. And thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Michael.
And just a reminder about our weekly podcast called Safe Word by Fear and Greed. The three of us have a bit of a lighter look at some of the business news around the place. It now lives on its own outside the main Fear and Greed playlist, so you need to search for it on your podcast platform. Just look for Safe Word by Fear and Greed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit follow so you get it every week. I'm Michael Thompson. Have a great weekend.